Welcome to today's episode of Cultivate Ag, where we will delve into the latest developments in agricultural research and practices. In this talk, Dr. Mike Marshall, our weed specialist, will cover a range of agricultural topics such as tackling resistant ryegrass and exploring innovative herbicides like Reviton, along with insights on managing your Texas Panicum. Stay tuned for valuable insights that could revolutionize your approach to weed management.
Thanks for having me here today. Talk a little bit about some of the work we've been doing at the station in weeds and peanuts. First, I want to talk about ryegrass. That's something we've been working on with resistance. Updates on that, working on it. Up in the upstate, I want to touch a little bit about a new burn down product that we're trying to get a 24 seed label in peanuts for. It's called Reviton. Show some pictures of some work I did. It was in soybeans and cotton. We're trying to get it registered in peanuts for burn down as an additional option for you. A few slides about the resistance survey. I had a grad student who finished up last year. I wanted to show a few results from that are applicable for peanut herbicides. And finally, another project we're working on looking at Texas Panicum. It's a weed that I get a lot of questions about, and we seem to be having more problems with Texas Panicum through the years here. First, I want to talk about the ryegrass. This is a winter annual. I've been getting some calls, burn down problems with controlling this. Does anybody in this area have problems with it, with burn down with glyphosate? There's some other areas in the state collected samples from. This is a field, sprayed good burn down program, Roundup, lead off, and 2,4-D. This was in March. We came back, looked like things were working there in March when they sprayed. Came back about 2.5 weeks later, all that stuff that looked like it was dying, it greened back up and started growing again. And I did a little down and dirty, really quick 2-week project up there with it. We cordoned off an area of that field and I sprayed Roundup, just Roundup. Checks up there, you don't really see a lot of difference except when you get up to the 4-quart rate of Roundup. You start to see more dead plants in amongst that picture there, but you still see quite a few live plants there. That's a good indication that we've got some resistance problems. This population, along with about 10 other populations that we've been working on, we took them to the greenhouse. This was actually last fall, just to confirm what level these populations have resistance. This is glyphosate screen, and this is sampling of 5 populations. And you can see some of them from 0 to 4x Roundup rate. And you can see some of them, populations are still fairly sensitive. We're controlled at the 1x rate, while others, you see green plants there at the 4x. I've been working on these populations this past winter, trying to get some dose response curves generated for these, but obviously we have resistance that were soon to be confirmed in ryegrass, and that would be 3 resistances we have for ryegrass. We already have ALS, we already have ACCAs, and now glyphosate. So what can we do if glyphosate doesn't work? What are the next options for us? We looked at some residual. Other states have published work on residual herbicides, and I got some up there, Valor, Residua, Metribuzin, and Dual Magnum, as a way to spray these in the fall before the ryegrass emerges or germinates, and this would control those flushes through the winter. The fall is typically whenever you have the biggest flush of ryegrass. You have some in spring, February, about right now. You might have some more, but the majority of it's in the fall. We looked at this. The thing that I wanted to point out with this slide was Valor. Valor does have some post-emergent activity on ryegrass. You're a little bit late getting it out in the fall. It would control that seedling ryegrass and provide residual at the same time. The others obviously work too, but they don't have that post-emergent activity. But they did work if you got it out early enough before the ryegrass emerged, and that's 90 days. We also looked at cover crop, cereal rye. We wanted to look at, this project, we wanted to look at how Valor, how these residuals would interact with a cover crop. And we did see some injury with Valor and Metribuzin on rye. Just the cover crop by itself in the middle there did control it, shaded it out, because cereal rye comes up very fast and shades out what's there. So we could not see any ryegrass coming up in just the cover crop plot. So I mentioned some strategies here for ryegrass management. I mentioned the resistances we have now in South Carolina there. Obviously, monitor your populations for escape, for control failures. I know this time of year when we have cold nights, it takes Roundup a long time. If we're burning down for corn, I know it's a little early for peanuts, but when it's cold out, you know, it takes a long time for a product like Roundup to work on some weed. So monitor that. We're continuing to work with the fall residuals. I think that's going to be our backup, I guess, for ryegrass. So if you're going into a field where you have ryegrass in the cover crops, that would be a good option too. That's it on ryegrass. Talk about the Reviton product. Again, we often have trouble with a lot of mustards, primrose, some other difficult to control weeds with our burn down programs. And I just listed a few here, programs that are common. I mentioned 2,4-D Roundup, and then you add some residuals like Leadoff or Valor, or you use some like a burn type herbicide. This glyphosate with Sharpen or Goal, and the Reviton. Those are all contact herbicides, so they will help some of these larger plants like you see there, that mustard that's flowering. Real quick here, I mentioned we applied for 4C, that's the special use label for South Carolina. It's already registered for corn and soybeans and cotton. I think when we get it, hopefully soon, it'll be 7 days from application to planting for peanuts. Of course, we won't know that till it goes through the PA and the registration process on the 24C. But I want to show you some pictures of some plots that we did. So the check is on the left, on the right. So this is Reviton at 1 ounce. The flag is in the center of the plot. It's a 13-foot wide plot. So this is Reviton and glyphosate. You can see that it's at the 1 ounce rate. You can see some primrose there at the bottom of the picture. It's not as controlled as we'd like it to be, as we had 2,4-D in it. This is Reviton with 2,4-D. 2,4-D helped us with the bigger broadleaf weeds at the 1 ounce rate. And the 2 ounce rate, really, I think that's a better amount to apply because you can see the difference in primrose and other stuff. You see there's a lone oak plant out there. It seemed to survive it really well, but we typically don't have that as a burn down weed. But you can see the others there. Some ryegrass in there too was controlled pretty well. And I'll just compare that to Leadoff and glyphosate. Leadoff's a pretty popular herbicide program in the state. Gives a residual, so it did fairly well compared to the Reviton, but just like I said, another option for like ryegrass and stuff, because these populations of ryegrass in this field are all sensitive so far. So don't take that one to the bank. Cross all your fields thinking it might work. Glyphosate alone, this glyphosate program might still work. So just keep an eye on that. Anyway, I wanted to show you those products. Keep it on your radar. And finally, glyphosate 2,4-D. Let me talk a little bit about the survey. I had a student do this for his master's. We did a big survey across the state, and I'm only going to focus on the blue rows here. Those are the herbicide families that we use in peanuts. A PPO inhibitor, ALS inhibitor, and dual magnum, a group 15 herbicide. I just want to show you some of the results from those three groups. This is dual magnum, so we use dual magnum quite a bit. Group 15s, Zidua, Warrant, Outlook. They all belong to the same family. So this is dual, and others are a big part of, especially in peanuts, where we use a lot of residuals in our production to control weeds, control palmer. This is palmer amaranth. So this just indicates that on the 0 side was susceptible, completely controlled. Over on the right side of the graph, that's where we had 91 to 100% emergence of that population. So as you can see, we're starting to trend, don't mean to scare everybody, but we're starting to trend to see some populations of palmer amaranth that are surviving a pre-emergent application of dual. Obviously we have these populations noted, and we're going to keep an eye on those. Other states, North Carolina, Georgia, and others have confirmed populations that are not resistant yet, but are starting to show reduced sensitivity to our group 15s. This kind of little map of the heat maps, and the red is considered on the resistant side, I would say greater than 70 or 80% emergence. So you can see it's pretty well spread across the state, the red dots there. ALS herbicide in palmer amaranth, ALS was first documented in the late 90s, 97. We still have a good amount of resistance out there, but there's more susceptibility there than I anticipated. I thought we'd have most of it over on the resistant side there. Greater than 71% of the populations would be over there. That was unexpected, but there's some places in the state where ALS herbicides still work. Another map here, again, shows look at the red dots there. Those are the ones where we found populations that were on the high side of the resistance scale, which is expected. Some places were more red than others, but you still saw a lot of green there, susceptible across the state. And this is reflex, so we use Valor. We use several other PPO inhibitors in peanuts, so we don't use reflex that often. The good news is that all but like 8 populations were controlled 100%, so we're going to keep looking at that. But again, that's a very low level there. Only 11% of the populations we had some survivors. So we're going to keep looking at that. I was kind of relieved to see that that herbicide family is still working for us, given that in other crops we use Reflex a lot. All right, moving on to Texas Panicum. Again, I mentioned that we're doing a project. I have a new student working on this project, and I just wanted to talk about Texas Panicum as a large seeded grass, and the group 15 herbicides like Dual I mentioned and others don't work on this herb. Well, they suppress it for a time. Prowl, H2O, the group 3 herbicides are the ones that work on much better on this grass, but we can only use Prowl at planting. We can't use it any other time of the season. Looking at our residual programs in peanut, we often see escapes or mid-season, late season emergence of Texas Panicum. Clethodim or Select is usually the go-to herbicide for that. So this project, we looked at 5 different weed sizes. Out of those sizes, we had 3 sequential applications. 1 application of Clethodim. The first 3 sizes, there'll be 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and then the greater than 12 up to the bigger sizes, we did sequential applications. And the second study, we looked at different adjuvants. Crop oil concentrate is the recommended adjuvant for Clethodim, so we included that. And we also included AMS as supplementary adjuvant to see if that helped us in controlling Texas Panicum. This is the data. What I want you to take from this slide here, as the weed size gets bigger, our control decreases. And you can see that as the bars get shorter and shorter as the Texas Panicum gets to the 8 to 12 inch size to the greater than 12 inch size, which is expected. The Clethodim label specifies 4 to 6 is the optimum height or less. It's kind of expected. If you don't see that Texas Panicum until it's a larger plant and it's tillered and all that stuff, it's going to be much more difficult to control based on this data. However, if you look at the sequential applications, the last 3 groups of bars there, the 6 to 8 with 2 shots of Clethodim, we're able to get that control near almost 100%. But again, as we get larger, that efficacy declines even with the sequential application. So just keep that in mind, that you want to try to spray it as small as possible. That's true with any weed, especially post-emergent. And there's some pictures here from last year. And so this is the 4 to 6. You can't see it very well in the picture, but the growing point is pretty much dead in that plant. It just takes some time for the rest of the plant to die. But compare that to the big Texas Panicum, we still got a lot of green tillers that will survive that application and keep producing seed. So that's a comparison between the 2 sizes. The adjuvant study, we looked at different adjuvant combinations. Crop oil is recommended, the COC. And methylated seed oil is also on the label as a potential additive. NIS is not, it's not recommended. But as you look at methylated seed oil and crop oil, with crop oil, we didn't see a benefit to adding the AMS, but with methylated seed oil, we did see a bump with the AMS. So if you want to use a methylated seed oil, it would get you almost to the same level as crop oil. But this data shows that crop oil alone still provides the best control for Texas Panicum post-emergent. Also throwing that weed size there, so 4 to 6, its control is higher than at the 8 to 12. Regardless of the adjuvant we use, we still see a decline as weed size gets. All right, looking at, obviously I mentioned before, residuals that we use in peanuts are the dual magnums, deciduas, etc. Suppress Texas Panicum for a time, but we don't have, season-long control of Texas Panicum using those residuals. So we developed a project where we wanted to look at residuals and cover crop in combination. So what we did is we planted a fall cover crop of cereal rye and oats, and then we had no cover crop. And then we had these herbicide programs, and we had a typical application timing, about 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 75 days for the application timings. And I'll show you. There's a lot on the slide here, but there's just some different programs that we often use in peanuts. I think a lot of people use 2 shots of Clethodim during the season, and that's what I have on the 3 and 4 there. And the post-2 is just different at 30 days. So we have programs with cadre and without cadre. Some folks don't want to use cadre because of the rotation concerns with cotton. So I put those in there as I don't want to use cadre treatment. Here's some of the results. So this is about 2 weeks after the 30-day treatment. You can see actually where we had cadre, we did tend to see better Texas Panicum control than where we just had the other residuals like dual zidua. Zidua did have better residual going out under the no cover crop. Looking at across there, you see that the rye, the light blue colored bar, was higher in all the treatments. So that indicated that having some sort of a ground cover there with the residual did give us more suppression, more control of Texas Panicum than the oat and then the no cover. So that was good. Obviously the more tools, more control tactics we put in our production program, the better our success with pest control will be. And I want to put this up here. This was the control plot basically. So we had no herbicides. So this is just cover crop and no cover crop. This is a Texas Panicum plants per unit area. And you can see the rye bar was the lowest, had the fewest Texas Panicum plants versus the oats, which is a dark blue, and then the no cover, which is about 30 plants per meter square. Cover crops will help us. I know it's more challenging in a peanut production system to utilize cover crops versus our other row crops. I think it's a good tool for us to consider. Here's some pictures of those plots. The one on the left is the rye, the oat in the middle, and then the no cover. So really the oat broke down really fast. Residue, the rye hung around most of the summer. We still had good coverage of the soil. And as you can see in the no cover, that it's quite a bit of seed heads out there. So the cover did provide some impact on those Texas Panicum populations. That's all I had today. Thank you for having me. Here's my contact information. I want to thank the Peanut Board for funding the projects on the adjuvant projects and the cover crop projects. February 6th, the dicamba labels were vacated by a federal court in Arizona. And February 14th, the EPA came out with what they call a limited stocks order or ending stocks order. And what that means is any dicamba product that was packaged in the system can still be transported to retailers and retailers can still sell them. Anything before February 6th was not at that stage, cannot be sold. I think in the dicamba training, you'll get some dates on that. The retailers have a cutoff date. For the growers, it's still the same dates as always, June 30th for soybeans and July 30th for cotton. As far as 2025, I don't know what's going to be the impact there. Those products technically are no longer available, don't have a label, so it's pretty much up to the registrants to start the whole process over to get a new label for the products. So I don't know what the time frame will be or how long that'll take. But at least this year we have dicamba.
And that's a wrap up today's enlightening discussion. We've explored the challenges posed by ryegrass resistance, the potential for Reviton as a new burn-down option, insights from herbicide-resistant surveys, and strategies for tackling Texas Panicum. Remember, staying informed and adaptive is key to ever-evolving landscape of our agriculture. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep cultivating knowledge and innovation in your fields.